Hi, I'm James from Adventure Bike Rider. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the 2025 Honda NT1100, including what's new, how it compares to the old version, and whether it's worth your hard-earned cash. Honda first released the NT1100 in 2022 with a very simple concept. Take the engine and the chassis from the Africa Twin, their hugely successful adventure bike, and create a dedicated road touring machine. The result was a bike that was hugely capable at covering long distances, but it wasn't perfect. So, for 2025, Honda have spoken to its customers. It's broken down its bike and looked to address all the issues that people may have had with that initial version to create the ultimate NT1100. So let's take a look at what's new. On the surface, it might not look like a revolution, but take a closer look and you can see Honda has made a large number of changes to this bike. To begin with, everything plastic you see is new. So that's the fairing, the luggage, and the screen. And when it comes to the fairing, Honda has sharpened up the bike's looks. Yes, it still looks like an NT, but one of the criticisms of the previous bike was, well, it did look like a large scooter, very much resembling the XADV. Well, the bike still has that look, but it's become a little bit more muscular. The lines have become a bit sharper, and to my eye, it is a better looking machine, and one I think I'd actually be proud to own. Talking about the plastic parts of the bike, the luggage has also been increased in size. And again, this comes back from Honda talking to its customers. And people said, we want to be able to fit 2 full-face helmets in the luggage. So that is exactly what Honda has enabled buyers of the 2025 NT1100 to do. Another change is the screen. Now, the original screen on the NT1100 was actually pretty good, but Honda has been speaking to its customers again, and they said they wanted a screen that you could adjust with one hand while on the move, which to me is a bit of a no-brainer for a touring bike, and thankfully, Honda has made that change, and the system is actually very good. Just lean forward with your left hand, pull, lift, and you've got a change of screen height, which is very important when you're touring. One thing that remains the same is that beautifully torquey liquid-cooled parallel twin engine. It's 1,844 cc of feisty goodness. It makes 101 brake horsepower at 7,500 RPM and 112 Newton meters of torque at 5,500 RPM. Now the peak power stays the same, but Honda have tweaked that engine to increase torque by 7%, which you'll find in the mid-range, with peak torque reached 150 RPM lower in the rev range. What this means is you get more mid-range grunt, the area which most people use the power on the bike, whether you're overtaking 2 up or slipping through traffic. Now you can tell the difference. I haven't ridden the bikes back to back today, but having spent plenty of time on the previous NT, this version does feel feistier. Boy, that engine, whether it's in an Africa Twin, whether it is an NT1100, is a joyous, feisty beast of an engine to ride. It's fantastic. Now, keyboard warriors out there may start complaining that it doesn't make anywhere near as much power as the likes of the Ducati Multistrada or the BMW GS, and that'd be true. The Multistrada's on 170 brake horsepower. I think the GS is around 145-ish. This engine makes 101 brake horsepower, but it is the way it is tuned that's important. So ignore the keyboard warriors. This engine is a beautiful thing to ride. One of the most important things, if not the most important thing when it comes to a touring bike, is comfort. If a touring bike isn't comfortable, you are not going to want to spend long days in the saddle on it. So it's imperative that Honda kept the NT1100 a comfortable long distance touring machine, and it has done the job. In fact, it has improved the comfort on the NT1100. It's got a slightly wider seat and it's also got more room for the pillion. And also you have that classic upright NT1100 riding position. Now, compared to the Africa Twin, if you've ridden one of those, you are lent slightly further forward. I think if I remember correctly from the presentation last night, you're lent 10% further forward. I'm not really sure how they measure that stat, but it shows you that it's a slight tweak rather than a sports bike style lean forward. Overall, it's a really comfortable place to be. There's a nice natural reach to the bars. The leg bend angle isn't overly acute. The seat is comfortable and you get lots of weather protection from that redesigned fairing on the screen. It is a wonderful place to spend a few hours in the saddle, as I did today. And I admit, getting off the bike after probably 7-8 hours of riding, I'm not aching, my backside isn't aching, which can't be said for all bikes I ride. One of the biggest changes for 2025 on the NT1100 is the introduction of Showa-era electronic suspension. Boy, what a system that is. I think it is the biggest difference between the previous model and the current model. And the difference genuinely is night and day. That electronic suspension measures the pitch, the roll, the yaw of the bike, the speed, and it makes thousands of calculations every millisecond to help you not only stay upright, but provide a comfortable and stable ride. And the thing was sublime. Cruising through the twisting mountain roads of Spain, it was fantastic. It was so composed, it felt so capable and so confidence-inspiring. I think the only time I felt the bike got out of shape was when I braked very aggressively into tight turns, and I can feel the chassis losing shape, the tires losing a bit of grip. But that was incredibly spirited riding. In reality, a bike like this is for long distance touring and cruising. If you want a track weapon, clearly it's not the bike for you, but that electronic suspension is a big plus in my book and adds another reason why the NT1100 is a great buy if you're looking for a touring machine. Now, that electronic suspension is controlled by an internal measurement unit which is connected to an onboard computer. It's packed with technology, this machine. It also means you have an option of 3 rider modes, which is Tour, Urban and Rain, and a couple of user modes that you can fiddle with and tinker with to your heart's content. Now, today I hardly went into the rain mode because it is a beautiful sunny day, but it backs off the power, gives you plenty of engine braking, and is a bit of a safety net. Today I mostly use the Tour mode. That gives you the most power, a decent amount of engine braking, and a little traction control. The Urban mode again backs off the power, but for me, even pottering through towns, cruising along the motorway, or riding through some fantastic twisties, that Tour mode hits the sweet spot. It gives you all the power you need because this isn't a hugely powerful engine, so it's nice to make the most of it. Now, one of the cool things about that new electronic suspension is the fact that you can adjust the preload at the rear as you ride. Why would you want to do this, I hear you ask? Well, if you've got a pillion on the back or some luggage and the bike, you don't feel it's handling quite right, you don't have to get out, break open a tool or twist a knob on the side, take off again, see if it feels okay, stop again, have a fiddle. You can just change the settings on the buttons as you ride. It's a great way of making sure that the bike feels good over long distances. I took advantage of it today, and I think it's a real plus point for a bike that's designed for two-up touring. As ever with a big Honda, you have the choice between a manual clutch or Honda's dual clutch transmission system. And on this launch, Honda furnished us with the DCT bikes with electronic suspension. The DCT system has evolved over the years. I admit, when I first rode it a few years ago, I really wasn't a fan. I found myself in the wrong gear too much of the time. There wasn't enough engine braking. And overall, I didn't like the fact that the bike was changing gear and would surprise me whether it was on roundabouts, fast turns, or during overtakes. Over the years, Honda has refined the system, and this, I can honestly say, is the best version of DCT yet, and for one very good reason. Now, usually you have the option between a D drive mode, which is quite relaxed, and quite frankly today still had me in too high a gear most of the time. Meant I was chugging along and struggled to make high-speed overtakes. But it's also got a sport mode, which in the past I've found hung on to gears a little bit too much. So Honda has introduced 3 levels of DCT into that sport mode. Now, please don't go to sleep if you're not interested in technology, because this is actually very important if you're buying a DCT bike, in the fact that level 3 hangs on to gears for a long, long time, giving you the sportiest ride you can possibly have. Level 1 backs this off, and level 2 is the sweet spot for DCT in any motorcycle. It pretty much nails gear changes 90% of the time, and I was really impressed. And this is the first bike that I would actually consider buying a DCT version of. But it wasn't perfect. A couple of times I did get overtakes and found myself in a lower gear with a bigger squeaky butt time with a car coming the other way. But overall, the DCT has improved immensely. And if you're looking for relaxed 2-up touring, it really is a good option. And a lot of people agree with me, because 66% of NT1100 sold are sold with DCT. So how does the bike handle? Well, as you'd expect, it's a big touring bike. It's not the most agile machine in the world, but it is very composed on the road. It's very confidence-inspiring. Give it a nudge of countersteer and it will predictably go where you tell it to. And because of that new electronic suspension, when it hits lumps and bumps in the road, very rarely did the steering suddenly do something I didn't expect it to do. Now, this wasn't 100% of the time, and once or twice when I hit bumps through turns, when I was pushing it a little harder than perhaps I would back home, this was a press launch, the speed is often faster than I would usually ride, the bike did get a little out of shape. But 100% of the time when I was riding responsible speeds, the bike felt composed, it felt predictable, and handled very, very well. One of the things I like most about the NT1100, whether it's this new version or the previous model, was the amount of kit you get as standard for a very reasonable price. Now, looking at this bike behind me, you get this roomy luggage as standard on the bike. You get cruise control, you get heated grips, you get wind deflectors, you get the big touring screen. It's basically ready to go and travel long distances straight out the dealership, which isn't something that could be said for an awful lot of bikes. A lot of machines, you'll have to raid the accessories catalogue for it to be ready to travel in comfort. But Honda has produced a motorcycle that will take you where you want to go, protected from the weather, straight out the dealership. And I think Honda should be applauded for that. And everything works very well. Now, I didn't test the heated grips today because it's a warm, sunny day, but the luggage is roomy, it's easy to use, and overall, I think this bike represents fantastic value for money. Now, Honda has kept the same TFT display that you'll find on the old NT1100 and on the Africa Twin. It's big, it's bright, it's functional, it's a bit clinical. It's not a particularly nice looking display. I think it's time Honda updated it, but it does the job. All the information you need is laid out on that main screen pretty clearly. You've got your speed, gear position indicator, revs, odometer, and more. So while there's not too much to complain about, it's not easy on the eye. As ever, it's a big Honda bike, so it comes with the option of using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. If you haven't come across these before, then it's worth checking out, because it basically means you can mirror your phone on the huge TFT display. Now below the big TFT is a small LCD. So if you've got Google Maps mirrored on the big TFT, you can still look at your speed and gear position indicator and things like that. But the joy of this system is you don't need to have a separate sat nav, you don't need to mount your phone and worry about it getting wet on the handlebars. If you want Google Maps up, looking for somewhere to go, then you've got the system there. If you want to play music, you can scroll through your Spotify on the move. It really is a fantastic system and one I wish other manufacturers would adopt. So we come to Honda's switchgear. At last count, I think there were 14 buttons. Someone even said there might have been 16. I find it hugely confusing. Now, if you own an Africa Twin or an NT1100, you might be screaming at the screen right now. Just take some time to look at the manual and figure out how to use those damn buttons. And you're right. If I sat down with the manual and worked out how to use it, then no doubt I would get used to this setup. But someone who's just got on the bike today, it's not particularly intuitive. I had a bit of trouble playing with the different functions. Just be aware that if you buy one of these bikes, the switchgear does need a bit of studying. One of the most appealing things about the previous NT1100 was the value for money it provided. You got all these extras as standard on a bike that performed very well for a very reasonable price. Now, Honda has upgraded the bike, it's introduced new technology, so it also has increased the price. But I have the prices here, so I get them correct. So we have, for the standard bike, no electronic suspension and a manual transmission with all these extras. I feel like a car salesman here. You get it for £12,679, which I think is very reasonable. This bike, with the DCT transmission and the electronic suspension, is £14,099. Now that is not a small chunk of change, but when you considered all the kit that comes as standard and the fact that you can drive out of a showroom and head off on tour on this machine, I think it represents excellent value for money. It has been a fantastic day here in Spain, riding Honda's new NT1100. The roads were sublime, the weather has been fantastic, and the food has been brilliant. It's Spain. And now it's the end of the day. I'd like to sample a little bit of the local wine. But as pleasurable as these launches are, they are no good if the bike doesn't perform. If I've ridden a bike all day that I really haven't enjoyed, my mood is a lot lower. But that is not the case today. The NT1100 was everything I expected it to be, and so much more. Honda has made changes to this bike that has raised its level of performance. If you ride them back to back, you really will notice the change in how well the bike handles and in how well the bike performs, in no small part due to that new electronic suspension and the IMU measure in it. Honda has taken what was a very capable, practical bike and made it even better. Let's be honest here, this isn't the sexiest machine in the world, but for people that own an NT1100, they won't care about that because they'll be too busy riding. This is a bike for people that cover big distances, for people that commute to work every day, for people with dreams of traveling across Europe and beyond. And it will do so without fuss, without fanfare, reliably, but it will also be a hell of a lot of fun. It's been a fantastic time here in Spain. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.